Here's today's featured headline in space. EchoStar is selling spectrum to AT&T in a deal that should boost its efforts to deploy a direct-to-device satellite constellation. Today is August 27th, 2025, and you're listening to Space News First Up. Here are today's other top headlines. SpaceX's Starship vehicle performed a largely successful test flight Tuesday after a string of failures. Belgian satellite maker Aerospacelab has raised 94 million euros, 110 million, to expand manufacturing capacity. Firefly Aerospace said a structural failure caused by excessive heating was the key problem with its Alpha rocket in April. And satellite operator XTAR is planning new satellites to expand opportunities with U.S. and allied military customers. We begin today with news that EchoStar is selling spectrum to AT&T in a deal that should boost its efforts to deploy a direct-to-device satellite constellation. EchoStar will sell the terrestrial wireless spectrum to AT&T for $23 billion, ending its bid to operate as a traditional mobile carrier in the United States. The proceeds from the spectrum sale should allow EchoStar to pay down much of its more than $25 billion in debt and help it finance a $5 billion constellation of direct-to-device satellites. EchoStar ordered 100 satellites from MDA Space earlier this month for that constellation. SpaceX's Starship vehicle performed a largely successful test flight Tuesday after a string of failures. The Starship Super Heavy vehicle lifted off from Starbase, Texas at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on the Flight 10 mission. The vehicle avoided the problems that caused the 3 previous launches to fail. Starship was able to deploy 8 mass simulators of next-generation Starlink satellites during the suborbital flight and perform an in-space relight of a Raptor engine. The vehicle survived re-entry and made a pinpoint, soft splashdown in the Indian Ocean. SpaceX said after the flight that the launch achieved all of its major goals. Belgian satellite maker Aerospacelab has raised 94 million euros, 110 million, to expand manufacturing capacity. The extended Series B round announced Tuesday brings Aerospacelab's total venture capital raised to 134 million euros. The investment will support completion of the company's mega factory in Belgium, designed to produce up to 500 satellites a year by 2027. Aerospacelab is competing with Airbus to build 290 satellites for the low Earth orbit portion of IRIS Squared, Europe's planned sovereign multi-orbit broadband constellation. Firefly Aerospace said a structural failure caused by excessive heating was the key problem with its Alpha rocket in April. The company announced Tuesday it completed the investigation into the failure, which caused the loss of a Lockheed Martin technology demonstration satellite. On the launch, a higher angle of attack during ascent than used on previous launches caused aero heating on part of the first stage. That weakened the structure, which ruptured from the forces of stage separation. The pressure wave from the rupture took off the nozzle of the second stage engine, reducing its performance and keeping the stage and its payload from reaching orbit. The company said it has implemented changes to prevent the problem from happening again and has received approval from the FAA to resume launches. Satellite operator XTAR is planning new satellites to expand opportunities with U.S. and allied military customers. The Virginia-based company is shifting from its 2 legacy X-band satellites to next-generation spacecraft funded by its minority shareholder, Spain's Hisdesat Servicios Estratégicos. One of the satellites, SpainSat NG-1, launched in January, while SpainSat NG-2 is scheduled for launch in the fall. Both next-gen satellites carry payloads in X-band, military Ka-band, and UHF. XTAR's new CEO Patrick Reierman said the satellites will give XTAR more tools to compete for U.S. Department of Defense and allied government contracts.
Discover your next mission in the space industry with the Space News Job Exchange. Visit jobs.spacenews.com to find top aerospace roles and connect with leading employers. And for employers, use discount code JOBEX for 15% off your next purchase.
In other news, SpaceX launched an imaging satellite for Luxembourg and several secondary payloads Tuesday. A Falcon 9 lifted off from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California at 2:53 p.m. Eastern. Its primary payload was the National Advanced Optical System, NEOS, satellite, a high-resolution imaging satellite built by OHB Italia for the government of Luxembourg. The launch also carried 7 secondary payloads for Capella Space, Druva Space, Pixel, and Planet. The launch was an example of the shared launch rideshare services that SpaceX provides, in addition to its dedicated rideshare launches. Florida Today reports that another Falcon 9 launched more Starlink satellites this morning. The Falcon 9 lifted off at 7:10 a.m. Eastern from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying 28 Starlink satellites. Those satellites were deployed a little more than an hour after liftoff.
Share your company's news with the entire space industry through Stellar Dispatch, the press release service from Space News. Learn more and use discount code SD2106 for 15% off when you submit yours at spacenews.com/Stellar Dispatch.
European Spaceflight reports that ICEYE has secured funding from a Polish bank. ICEYE announced this week it raised more than 40 million Polish zloty, $10.9 million, from Vinci SA, an investment vehicle of Poland's National Development Bank. The announcement described ICEYE as a Polish-Finnish company, although the synthetic aperture radar company was founded in Finland in 2014 and has subsidiaries in several countries, including Poland. Gazeta.ru reports that the head of RSC Energia has warned employees of the Russian space company that it is in danger of shutting down. In a notice on an internal website, Igor Maltsev, general director of the company, said the company has severe debts and that many employees have lost motivation. He said he could not rule out closing the firm if the problems continued. Energia, whose origins date back to a design bureau created by Sergei Korolev, currently produces Soyuz and Progress spacecraft. The Guardian reports that a radio telescope project is facing allegations of financial mismanagement. The Square Kilometre Array Observatory, SKAO, is a multi-billion-dollar project building a network of thousands of radio antennas in the Australian outback. Costs of the project have gone up significantly, which a whistleblower alleges were due in part to losses from investments using SKAO funds, covered up by reshuffling other funds and claiming losses from currency fluctuations. SKAO is an international organization governed by a treaty that exempts it from taxes and normal legal processes. SKAO leadership has commissioned an external review of those claims.